When, when Keith Ellison of Minnesota 5th District was sworn in on Jefferson's Koran, the comment was made that this shows the positive influence of the Koran on Jefferson, which shows the absolute lack of knowledge of history. Jefferson was involved in a war with Muslim terrorists, and that war lasted 32 years in American history. It's the first declared war against America after we had our independence. And it was a war that consumed a huge portion of America's thinking and time. As a matter of fact, when George Washington became president, by 1795, 16% of the federal budget was spent on the war against Islamic terrorists, against Americans. By the time Jefferson became president in 1801, 20% of the federal budget. So this is something in his thinking. Ironically, Thomas Jefferson was one of the first 3 diplomats dispatched from America to go negotiate with Muslim terrorists. And in doing so, there were 5 nations who had come after America. Our problem was we didn't have a military. We had a bunch of great farmers who could grab their squirrel rifles and go shoot British if they needed to, but being able to defend Americans overseas never crossed our minds. And everywhere an American flag was sailing across the ocean, particularly in the Mediterranean, when Islamic nations saw that, they said, Americans, let's go get them. And so those nations had declared war on what they called the Christian nations, about 9 nations. They had France and Spain and Portugal, and they had Scandinavia and Sweden. They had 9 nations, and America was one of them. Well, every other nation had a navy with which to defend itself. America didn't. So all we could do was try to negotiate with these guys. And so Congress in 1784, now we finished the American Revolution in 1783, 1784, Congress sends 3 diplomats. They send Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin and John Adams. Go meet with these 5 nations. Let's try to work out an arrangement where they want to attack American ships and American non-military folks overseas. And after 2 years, Adams and Jefferson had developed such a relationship with the Muslim negotiator that they felt comfortable in asking him some very candid questions, and they did. And the answers to those questions, Adams and Jefferson wrote down, sent back to the State Department. They're still public record to this day. Go online and read them. And they simply asked us again, we don't understand. We have done nothing to you, and yet you continue to attack. Why the unprovoked attacks? And the Muslim ambassador said, it's because our Koran requires it. We're required to make war on you and to enslave you if we can, and we get to go to paradise if we, and he went through all these reasons. And so for a couple of Americans to go, time out, you mean to tell me that a holy book says that if you kill someone, you go to heaven? It's not what our book says. And so Jefferson, he's always shown this characteristic in his life. He does not necessarily believe what someone else tells him. Jefferson goes and gets a Koran and reads it for himself. And it's very much like Sun Tzu said, that the Chinese general principles of war, know your enemy. I mean, these are the guys he's having to deal with and negotiate with. I need to know how they think. So Jefferson acquaints himself with that. And so he gets a Koran. It happened to be a 1746 edition of the Koran that he got. But as he was dealing with that as diplomats, then George Washington becomes president. He's Secretary of State under George Washington, still having to deal with these same guys through 8 years of Washington's presidency. Then he's vice president under Thomas Jefferson, another 4 years of having to deal with these guys. So when he became president in 1801, he said, we're done with negotiations. And he took the brand new American Navy, he loaded up 2 military expeditions, he put the Marines there on the Navy and sent them for the next 5 years. We had troops on the ground going through those nations saying, we're not negotiating anymore. We're settling it now. So yeah, the Koran did have a definite impact on Jefferson, but not in the way that Keith Ellison would suggest.
This is the Orthos Forum, and we approve this message.